Chinese Cinderella by Adeline Yen Ma, chapters 6 to 8. First day at school. On Monday morning, with Aunt Baba still in Tianjin, a maid helped me put on my brand new school uniform. It was white, a little too long, stiff with starch, and had the name of my new school, Sacred Heart, in bright red Chinese characters embroidered on the left breast pocket. After breakfast, I stayed in the hallway for what seemed like a very long time, waiting for someone to take me to school, wondering who it was going to be. I was excited to be starting first grade in my new primary school, which was next door to Big Sister's Aurora Middle School. Big Sister, however, was still in bed. Her classes were scheduled to begin an hour later than mine. The chauffeur had already left to drive my brothers to St. John's Academy, which was in the opposite direction. I saw Cook wheeling his bicycle through the hallway to go to market. He spotted me watching him. "Who is taking you to school?" he asked. "I don't know." I was nervous and couldn't help shooting a wistful glance at the big clock ticking away on the wall. It was getting late and everyone had forgotten about me. What should I do? I was panic stricken and felt tears rolling down my cheeks. Cook shrugged. "It's certainly not my job. No one mentioned anything to me about you." He was about to mount his bike and ride away when he noticed my tears. Now, don't cry. Being late for school isn't the end of the world." "Oh, all right, come along then," he mumbled gruffly as he lifted me onto the handlebars of his bicycle. Yo Shenzhen Primary School happens to be right next to the market. Sit here quietly and don't squirm. We'll be there in no time at all. After school was left out in the early afternoon, I waited with all the other first graders by the school gate. One by one, they were greeted and led away by the anxiously hovering mothers. Eventually, I was the only one left. Nobody had come for me. The metal gate slowly clanged shut behind me as I watched my classmates disperse, each clutching her mother's hand and eagerly recounting the adventures of her first day at school. After a long time, I peered through a crack into the deserted playground. Not a person was in sight. Cautiously, I pushed against the massive iron doorway. It was firmly locked. Trembling with fear, I realized that no one was coming to pick me up. Too embarrassed to knock or draw attention to myself, I walked tentatively out into the Shanghai streets. Surely, if I tried hard enough, I would remember the way home. It was a beautiful sunny afternoon. At first, I wandered along a wide, straight road linked with tall, leafy trees. Motor cars, trams, rickshaws, pedicabs, and bicycles whizzed by. I kept walking but dared not cross the road, glancing briefly at the open fronted stores overhung with colorful, upright, bilingual signboards. I turned a corner and now the sidewalks seethed with people and noise and commotion. Coolies shouldering heavy loads on bamboo poles, hawkers selling toys, crickets in cages, fans, cold tea, candies, meat filled buns, spring rolls, tea, eggs, and fermented bean curd, stalls and booths offering services such as haircuts, shaves, dental care, letter writing, extraction of air wax, beggars banging tin cups and chanting for a handout. Except for me, everyone was striding purposefully along going somewhere. Everyone had a destination. I must have walked for miles and miles. But where was I? Should I enter a shop and ask for directions? But I didn't know my home address. What should I say? Should I approach that kindly old storekeeper smiling at me from the doorway of his antique shop and tell me, "Please, sir, I want to go home"? But where was my home? It was getting dark. Bright neon signs in blue, yellow, red, and orange came on and blinked at me. Had anyone at home missed me? Did they think I was still at school? Were they looking for me? What should I do? I walked past a bustling, brightly lit dim sum shop. Such a wonderful aroma was wafting through the door. Through the plate glass window, I saw roast ducks, soya sauce chickens, and hunks of glistening roast pork hanging from hooks. There was a young chef wielding his cleverer and deftly chopping a duck into bite sized pieces on a wooden block. Wouldn't it be heavenly to be given a slice of meat? But that might be too much to hope for. I would be quite content with a piece of bone to chew on. As I salivated, I imagined the taste of the food sliding down my throat. Breakfast seemed such a long time ago. Someone was touching my shoulder. I started and looked up. A large red faced woman, whom I had just seen bustling around the tables in the restaurant, was speaking to me. You have been standing here for almost half an hour. What's your mother doing that she would leave you waiting out here all by yourself? Doesn't she know it's dangerous for a little girl your age to be hanging around on the street like this? Are you supposed to have dinner with her here? Terrified, I lowered my head and shuffled my feet. Come and wait for her inside, she commanded as she glanced at my brand new school uniform. My daughter started school today too. Inside, it was hot and noisy. I stood hesitantly by the door. Suddenly, I noticed a black telephone next to the cash register. Why, just the day before, Big Brother and I had been playing and he had taught me a new numbers game he had just invented. Take any number and add, subtract, multiply or divide it. The one who comes up with the number 13 first wins. What number should we choose, Big Brother? I had asked. Round downstairs and get our telephone book. It's marked on the front of the telephone in the stairways. I rushed down for the number and we played with it all afternoon, backward and forward, breaking it down and building it up again. 79281. That was it, 79281. Finally, Big Brother had won. He had broken 79281 into 7, into 9, 8, 21 and 7. 9 minus 8 is equal to 1. 21 divided by 7 is equal to 3. He then placed a number 3 to the right of the number 1 and got 13, thereby winning the game. I clapped my hands in glee and admiration. I felt honored that Big Brother had deigned to play with me all afternoon. No one was looking when I picked up the phone and dialed. Father answered on the third ring. Speak up, he shouted. There is so much background noise. Who is it? It's your daughter, fifth daughter. Where are you? Father asked in an even voice, quite calmly, and suddenly with a pang, I realized nobody had missed me. They didn't even know I wasn't home. I am in a restaurant. I got lost when I tried to walk home from school. Let me speak to the proprietor. You stay right there and I'll come and pick you up. Soon afterward, Father arrived and drove me home in his big black Buick. Traffic was light and he drove in silence. When we arrived, he patted me on my head. Next time you go anywhere for the first time, he admonished as he handed me a map of Shanghai from the glove compartment of his car. Read this map and find where you are and where you wish to go. This way you will never get lost again. That's exactly what I'll do, I thought to myself. After dinner, I'm going to ask Big Brother to teach me how to read this map. With Aunt Baba still in Tianjin, there's obviously nobody looking out for me. I just have to find my own way. Chapter 7, Family Reunion. Big Brother told me that AA, Aunt Baba, third brother and little sister were scheduled to arrive in Shanghai on the last Sunday in October. I started counting the days. Little sister had been separated from her mother Niang since she was just 6 months older. Now she was almost 2, and Aunt Baba had mentioned in a last letter that little sister was starting to jabber away in Mandarin with a strong Tianjin accent. How adorable. On the morning of their arrival, Father and the chauffeur met them at the station. I was overjoyed to see my beloved Aunt Baba and AA again. Third brother looked taller and thinner, but little sister had changed the most. Aunt Baba had dressed her in pretty pink silk trousers with a matching jacket and pink cloth shoes. Her hair was neatly combed into 2 little bee-ribboned brands that stood up on each side. Bobbling as she walked, she looked like a big doll with large round eyes and chubby pink cheeks, rushing around the sitting room, examining the dishes of candy, melon seeds, peanuts, ginger slices, and salted plums laid out on the coffee table, and then running back to Aunt Baba. All of us beckoned to her and vied for her attention as she teased us by half advancing and then quickly retreating to Aunt Baba's side. Repeatedly, Niang signaled her baby to come to her. But to little sister, her mother was a stranger and she ignored her. Niang was dressed in a dark brown Parisian silk dress with dangling pearl earrings and a string of large pearls round her neck. 15 feet away, I could still smell the cloying aroma of her perfume. Trying to help, Aunt Baba unwrapped a piece of candy and waved it. Little sister ran eagerly towards our aunt. Aunt Baba handed the candy to Niang, who waved it back and forth, attempting to entice her daughter to go to her. Rejecting the bribe and becoming annoyed, little sister ran to the candy dish instead and tipped all the candies onto the carpet. Growing visibly impatient, Niang approached little sister while we scrambled to pick up the candies. Bad girl. 4-year-old fourth brother screamed at his baby sister. You shouldn't have done that, big sister added in a stern voice, trying to curry favor with Niang. The rest of us remained silent. Don't want you? Little sister said directly to Niang in a distant voice. Don't like you. Go away. Surprised and hurt, Niang bent down to pick up her baby, who was wriggling and resisting with all her might. An unnatural hush fell upon the room. All eyes were on them as mother and daughter struggled. Little sister was now howling at the top of her voice while tears rolled down her little cheeks. Don't want you, she repeated loudly. Aunt Baba, tell her to go away, go away. No one said a word as Niang carried her weeping and kicking child and placed her firmly on the couch next to her. Little sister was pushing blindly against her mother's neck and face, now red and contorted with frustration. Keep still, Niang screamed furtively again and again in a piercing voice. In the melee, the string holding her pearls broke and the precious gems tumbled one by one, rolling across the carpet onto the wooden floor. This proved simply too much for Niang. Thoroughly exasperated, she gave her baby's face a stinging slap. Little sister only cried more loudly. Deliberately and viciously, Niang now set about beating her daughter in earnest. Her blows landed indiscriminately on little sister's ears, cheeks, neck, and head. Everyone covered as the punishment went on and on. The grown ups avoided looking at each other while we children shrank into our seats. I couldn't understand why Father, Yeye, and Aunt Baba were making no attempt to stop the assault. Why wasn't anyone objecting? I wanted to run away but dared not move. I knew I should remain silent, but words choked me and I felt compelled to spit them out. Finally, I could bear it no longer. Quaking with terror, I blurted out, Don't beat her anymore. She is only a baby. My protest seemed to halt Niang in the midst of a frenzy. Little sister's screams also simmered down to a whimper. Niang glared at me. Her large prominent eyes appeared to be popping out of their orbits with fury. How dare you? She said through her teeth. For a few seconds I was fearful. She was going to pounce on me instead. Across the room, Aunt Baba gave me a warning look and a slight shake of her head, telling me to say no more. In those few moments, we had understood everything. Not only about Niang, but also about all the grown ups. Now that Nene was dead, there was no doubt who was in charge. Fuming with rage, Niang slowly extended her right arm and pointed her index finger at me. I felt panic stricken and saw only my stepmother's long, red, perfectly manicured fingernail aimed straight at me. Then I heard her words, loaded with malice, which made my heart jump and the hair stand up on the back of my neck. Get out, she snarled in a cold, distinct voice. I shall never forgive you. Never, never, never. You would better watch out from now on. You will pay for your arrogance. Tram fare. Though father sent us to expensive missionary schools, he and Niang instituted an austerity program to teach us the value of money. To begin with, we were given no pocket money whatsoever, not even the tram fare. We had nothing to wear except our school uniforms. Big sister and I were ordered to keep our haircuts short, straight, and old fashioned. For my three brothers, it was much worse. Their heads were shaved bald in the style of Buddhist monks, and they were teased mercilessly by their peers. My school was a mile and a half from home, immediately adjacent to Big Sister's school. The number 8 tram ran directly from door to door. St. John's Academy was 3 miles away and could be reached by the same number 8 tram traveling in the opposite direction. When Ye first arrived in Shanghai, we begged him for money and he gave us our tram fare to go to school. 2 months later, Ye had spent all his money and he brought up the subject one evening. Dinner was almost over and everyone was eating fruit when Aunt Baba mentioned that she had decided to go back to work as a bank teller at Grand Aunt's Bank. This was probably her way of reminding father that she and Yaya had run out of money for their daily needs. We were holding her breath on their behalf. Father and Niang looked annoyed. You no need to work like a commoner, father said. You have everything you need here. Besides, Yaya enjoys your companionship at home. If either of you needs money, why don't you come to us and ask? I have told you both before that if I am busy or in the office, all you have to do is to speak to Jean, that is Niang here, and she will give it to you. How is this possible? I asked myself. Where is Yaya's own money? Is he no longer head of a family? Why is he suddenly and mysteriously dependent on father and Niang for pocket money? It was me cringe to think of my gentle and dignified grandfather begging for pocket money from my haughty stepmother. You are both so generous and employ so many servants that I find little I can do to help, Aunt Baba replied politely. The children are away all day at school. Going out to work every day will get me out of the house and give me something to do. Father now appealed to Yeye. What do you think? Won't you miss her? Let her work if that's what she enjoys, Yeye answered. She likes to spend her salary on playing mahjong and buying treats for the children. By the way, I meant to mention this to you before. The children should be given a regular weekly allowance. What for? Father asked, turning to us. Hasn't everything been provided for you? Well, for one thing, replied Big Sister, speaking on behalf of all of us. We need the tram fare daily to go to school. Tram fare? Niang interjected sharply. Who told you you could ride the tram? Why can't you walk? Exercise is good for you. It's too far to walk to St. John's. By the time we get there, it'll be time to turn around and go home again, Big Brother said. Nonsense, Father exclaimed. Walking is good for growing children like you. I loathe walking, Big Brother grumbled, especially first thing in the morning. How dare you contradict your father, Niang threatened. If he orders you to walk to school, then it's your duty to obey him. Do you hear? We were cowed into silence and looked towards Yeye, expecting him to come to our defense. But he kept his eyes on his plate and went on peeling his apple. Big Sister suddenly took the plunge. Yeye has always given us pocket money. We are used to going to school by tram. Nobody in my class walks to school. Most of my classmates are driven there in private cars. Niang became enraged. Your father works so hard to support everyone under this roof, she exclaimed in a loud, angry voice, shooting a quick glance at Yeye and Aunt Baba. How sneaky you all are to get money from Yeye and without your father's knowledge. We send you to expensive schools so you will grow up correctly. We certainly don't want you to be cuddled into becoming idle layabouts. From now on, all of you are forbidden to go behind our backs to trouble Yeye or Aunt Baba for money. Do you hear? Though her remarks were addressed to us, they were obviously meant for Yeye and Aunt Baba as well. She paused briefly and then continued. We are not saying you are never to ride the tram again. We merely want you to acknowledge your past errors. Admit you have been wrong. Promise you will change for the better. Come to us and apologize. Tell us from now on you will behave differently. We will give you the tram fare only if you are truly contrite. The room was completely still. The only sound I heard was that of AA chomping on his apple. Surely he was going to say something to put Niang in a place. The maids hustled around with hot, moist towels for us to wipe our fingers and mouths up. Then Niang spoke again in a sugary tone, looking directly at AA with a smile. These tangerines are so juicy and sweet. Here, do have one. Let me peel it for you. At first, we were all mad. The whole tram fare issue was obviously somehow tied up with the establishment of a new hierarchy within our family. Now that Nene was dead, was Niang going to take over? We told each other we would always be loyal to Yeye. If necessary, we intended to walk to school forever for at least until graduation to show our allegiance to him. 10 days later, I spotted Big Sister getting off the tram at the stop closest to our lane. Though she ignored me and I dared not say anything to her, she had obviously given in. My three brothers held out week after week. St. John's was so far from home. The weather turned cold and nasty. They were getting up in the dark and returning home exhausted. One after another, they gradually knuckled under. Though Yeye and Aunt Baba both kept urging me to go downstairs and beg for my tram fare, I just couldn't do it. Why? I hardly knew myself. Something to do with loyalty, fair play, and a sense of obligation. I did not discuss this with anyone, not even Aunt Baba. I simply couldn't force myself to go to Niang and admit that and therefore AA had erred in the past. Besides, it just didn't seem right to betray him, especially when I had begged for the money from him in the first place. When the rain pelted down in streets and gales howled through the streets, I would grit my teeth and I set about the seemingly endless journey along Avenue Joffrey. Arriving drenched at the school gates, I tried not to look at my schoolmates stepping daintily out of rickshaws, pedicabs, and chauffeur driven cars. I knew some of them laughed at me behind my back and whispered to each other that I took my own number 11 private tram to school daily, mentioning that my legs carried me. On Sunday afternoons, Niang frequently called out for my siblings to come downstairs to her bedroom, which third brother had nicknamed the Holy of Holies, and pick up their tram fares. Hearing this, would feel a stab of anguish because I was the only one always excluded. Big sister sometimes came back upstairs to show off by laying her coins in a row on my bed and counting them aloud one by one in front of me. Thank you.